G'day! My name is Haley from Storybrewers Roleplaying, and I am joined by three lovely folks here to play our newest game, Castles in the Air by Amelia Caraway. Castles in the Air is a game that captures the troubles and tenderness of stories like Little Women or Anne of Green Gables. Stories about a tight-knit group of children who grow up together and remain connected throughout their lives. So it's a game that focuses on their dreams, cares, struggles, their personal growth and failings, and above all else, what they mean to each other as years pass. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing all those things for our characters today. In terms of the mechanics, Castles in the Air is based on the Good Society system, but it adds so much that is unique and brings a totally new dimension to the stories you can tell. So I look forward to showing you that today. This is part one of our little game, which will be all about our children and their relationships to each other. And in part two, they'll be growing up into adults who go out into the wider world and we'll discover what changes and what, if anything, stays the same. So before we get on with introducing ourselves and our characters, I want to talk a little bit about what we've done so far in the game. So off screen, we completed collaboration, which is the first thing you do every time you play. It's where you make some important decisions about the game ahead. And this includes things like the tone of the game that you want to play, the way you want to treat historical power balances, and some things that you don't and that you do want to see during the game. The next thing we did is create the town together, where our game is going to be set, the New England town of Arlingham. So we are beginning in the year of 1870 during the America's Gilded Age, but we will be not enjoying the balls or bars of the big city yet. We might get there. We might get to Boston one day, but we'll see. So instead, our game is set in the small town of Arlingham, which has just over 1,000 residents. So it's a rural town with fields of turnips, parsnips, carrots, and pumpkins, expanding out from the edges of town into sprawling farmland. But it also has a textile factory, and the industrial center of the town is growing as well. And on top of the hill, not far from town, is a college for ladies that was established around 10 years ago. It is an elite college, and most of the students are actually not from the residents of Arlingham, but a new teacher has arrived who is shaking things up a little. So that is our town of Arlingham. And now let's talk about who we are playing. So you start Castles in the Air as children between 11 and 16 years old. And unlike Good Society, in this game, our characters aren't just coming from the top 1% of society. We're not just looking at the gentry. Our characters can be from all walks of life. So I'm going to give these wonderful folks a moment to introduce themselves and the young person they've created. Trooper, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Hello, I'm Trooper SJP, and today I will be playing George Addix, who is 15 years old. And he is from a very old Black family in New England. His parents had sort of done quite well for themselves, and he got to spend time in the sort of upper middle class and sort of striving sort of neighborhoods. He went to a very, very good boarding school. He was very good friends with one of my fellow players, Mariana Becker, but his parents, well, coming across the ocean, they had gone off for business, got lost at sea, and are presumed dead. And like the orphan princess of our good Victorian literature, he has lost everything. He had to leave boarding school. He came to this small town of Arlingham to stay with his grandmother, and he had to work. And so he had to get a job, which he hadn't done before. So he's working in a shop, one of these sort of corner stores. That's the fancier corner store, with more exciting things in it. And he's a dreamer. He lives in a fantasy world that's not exactly full of reality, lots of ideas, none of them very practical. One day he'll do amazing things. He knows it.
I believe in him. So one of the first things you started for with George was his childhood character role, which is kind of like how people see him and who he is as a child. And you were drawn to the dreamer straight away.
I was thinking about wanting that sort of the character who's not in a good situation, but like dreaming of the stars. And I was thinking about the kid who always imagines like ghost stories, or that really sort of really lost in their own world sort of thing, and how that is in one way like that's such a great childhood thing, but it's one of those things that you can't necessarily stay there, and it's not necessarily healthy to be there forever. I thought that would be a really neat sort of thing to play with.
And that's like a really good tie-in too with George's bosom enemy. So in Castles of the Air, Every character has like a bosom enemy, which is a inner fault or flaw that they struggle with throughout their lives. And if they kind of leave it unchecked, it can cause destruction. But they can also learn to harness it and find useful ways to either deal with it or useful things to do with it. And George has a really interesting bosom enemy. Do you want to tell us a bit about it?
Sure. My first one, the first way I said it was oblivious, right? The person who's like not paying attention, their head is in the clouds. And then I realized that I actually think that it's avoidance, that he will just detach from reality, which is great because you're very imaginative, but also you are not present. So I think that his bosom enemy is his avoidant imagination.
I like that. You can see how that could get him into a lot of trouble, but also could lead him, if he can harness it, could lead him
Yeah.
interesting places in his life. Let's move on to B. Let's move on to your character.
Hello, hello. So I'm going to be playing Isaac Brown. He is 15 and he is the scamp. And like I love a ruffian. I love a kid who's had it rough, it's very real, but like the more struggles, the more I'm drawn to trying to play that kind of person or character. Isaac is definitely high spirited, optimistic, but has seen the rough and unpleasant underbelly. Their family works for the textile mill, and Isaac doesn't, he works there, but doesn't always show up, will arrive late, won't do a good job. It's you have to be able to, work to support your family. And he definitely works to help his family right now, but he probably spends more of his time running around with his friends and doing and like sewing, tailoring, designing. He has big dreams of being a world famous tailor that people all across the world will come and see him and hire him for his work. He really wants to be able to live comfortably. And it's called the
Bosom enemy.
bosom enemy. Um, I'm still a little waffling on this, but I've been thinking of stubborn because if I try to think of like what kind of family Isaac comes from, we have humble origins. So, like they definitely don't have a lot. Everybody has to work in order to help the family. And I think a little bit of stubbornness just feels correct. And like our family has been here for quite some time. I'm thinking that like there's been some what's like the real life word for this, like interracial marriages and like within our history. So Isaac is like a light brown skin, just I think by virtue of having been here, like our family having been here for so long, we're definitely a family that's just here. So I think Isaac tries to operate on some of that privilege, but he's stubborn.
I love the contrast with Isaac between the family background you picked for him, that humble origins, and then the high-spirited scamp. And one of the first things I saw that you had was that big dream, which is called Castle in the Air. It's the name of the game, that every kid has as well. Where did you like come up with that Castle in the Air for Isaac? How did you find that starting point?
So I had to wiki look up New England. A handful of things were drawn to me, and it was the textile industry and farming. So I'd kind of waffled. I'm like, I've done a farmer. I love a farmer, but I think I really want a character that deals with textiles. I was very fascinated by that world of tailoring. And in a time when clothing was so you had clothing that you had to wear to kind of survive, but then you also had clothing that you wore for high fashion, for high society. Fashion was really really bumping at this time, and I think it would be a really fun dream for a character, especially a character with the roots and the family that he has.
Agatha, let's talk about your character.
The character that I will be playing is Ida Lowe. Ida is 15, which means in her mind she is an adult, and she is Isaac's cousin, much to her chagrin. Her family moved here when she was pretty young, like a babe. When they moved in, they decided to establish themselves as kind of the one other store in town. There's one store that sells you everything, from the seeds for the new year to the fancy bowls of cloth from the big city. And the Lowe family store definitely went for everything just a slight bit fancier than the pre-established store that's already here. So if you want the latest fashions in hair ribbons, you come to Lowe's. Ida grew up thinking that she is the cutting edge of fashion, and always make sure that everyone else knows it. I went with the princess as my role, and I'm really leaning into the aspect of it that is sophisticated for their age, spoiled but well liked by peers. We'll see about that. And eager to be an adult. These are all kind of strong Ida vibes. She has glossy black curls, dimpled cheeks, and a button nose always turned slightly up in disdain. She has a favorite red hair ribbon. Let's see. She is perpetually annoyed by this kind of happy-go-lucky atmosphere that George brings about. And George really brings that about because George works for the Lowe family store. And so George is just always around, not really doing anything, seemingly, in Ida's opinion, but just so disgustingly cheerful. And also talks about the parts of society that he used to take part in that Ida knows nothing about, but is very secretly jealous of. So Ida views George as her rival.
Yes, and so every character in Castles in the Air starts with a childhood relationship, and rival was like top on your list when we were talking about things we wanted to see in this game. What drew you to rivalry particularly? Why are you interested in seeing that?
I love being a kid arguing with another kid. And then possibly being an adult arguing with another adult. We'll
only
see.
hope you can see that in your future.
Who are you playing?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Lastly, me, I'm going to be running this game in the role of the facilitator. And it's the facilitator's job to work together to help everyone keep the game flowing smoothly. So as facilitator, I'm not like a traditional game master. I don't make up the story and I don't have any special narrative powers, but I am going to be looking out for the story and making sure all the characters get their turn in a spotlight and making little suggestions that will help us tell our story. But along with facilitating, and this is something that we recommend in Castles in the Air, I will also be playing a character of my own. So on that note, I will tell you about my character. I am playing Mariana Becker. She is 16 years of age. She attends Caldwell College, which is the school for ladies, the expensive school for ladies that is located just out of the town of Arlingham. And her family is from New Money. In fact, they own the very textile mill where Isaac and some of his family work. The reason why she is attending this college, although she didn't tell her parents this reason, is that she is good childhood friends with George from before the time that he lost his parents. She came here so that she could sneak out of the college and see him, and in doing so has also been introduced to and made friends with Ida and sort of friends with Isaac. Her parents have always been very indulgent of her, so she's sure that nothing bad is going to happen as a result of that. Now we've finished our who's who of our little coming of age story. We're going to jump into play shortly, but before we do, I want to explain a little bit how play works in Castles in the Air. Castles in the Air has a structured flow of play to make it feel more like an Alcott or Montgomery novel. And the structure is a little bit different in childhood compared to adulthood. So in childhood, we're going to have 3 types of phases that we're going to be moving through. Novel chapters, which are our in-character play, where we can have childhood adventures and learn or fail to learn from those around us. And then we have the bosom enemy phase, where we examine how we dealt with our bosom enemy when it was tested, and epistolary, where we can write letters or other childish creations such as school reports and made up stories to each other as well. So that's how childhood works. I will talk more about adulthood when we grow up later. But as we play, there are 2 other rules that we need to keep in mind. Firstly, you'll notice that you start the game with 2 resolve tokens. And these are tokens that you can spend to introduce new events or ideas into the story. And they go beyond just things involving your character to anything that you think might be interesting to occur in the story. So this could range from overhearing a scandalous secret to, causing a fire in the mill. I don't know why anyone would do that. Or even causing rain to break out so that two characters just have to take shelter alone under a nearby tree. But if you do use a resolve token in a way that harms the interests of another major character, you do need to enter into a negotiation with them. So you will offer them the token and say what you're interested in, and it's up to them whether they accept it, but have their own little stipulations they want to add, or if that's something they're just not interested in for the game. The other thing you have is a monologue token. And much like the name suggests, you can use this token to request a monologue from another player about the internal thoughts of their character. So the world freezes, a spotlight appears, and we hear what they are really thinking inside their heads. So that's what you really need to know to jump into play. But I will be explaining each phase of the game as we get to it. But we're going to get started with our first novel chapter. And the first novel chapter of the game is usually an event chapter, which means that it is one big event that all of our characters would have a reason to be at. And since Arlingham is famous for, after the harvest in fall time, having a vegetable carving contest, we thought that that might perhaps be a good setting for our first novel chapter today. I'm going to get everybody to add one detail.
I just want to dress up a scarecrow. I don't know if that truly contributes, but
I like it.
There's going to be some scarecrow wearing some like discarded textiles, just repurposed.
I think that the ladies from the college have been invited to participate, to be part of this festival, and I don't know how many of them are going to show up, but I feel like they've been invited, and I think it's the first year they have been invited, and I think that is causing a little bit of people are talking like there's a little bit of an instability about that because nobody really knows what that's going to be like.
A stir.
There's a lot of them. Yeah, it's a bit of a stir in the air. Yeah,
I think that the other general store, the one that is not the Low General Store, has purchased a stand where they are selling some autumn-themed candies and little like items. And I think that the Lowe family would have known about this. Do you think the Lowe family fought back and purchased their own stand across the way, or did they let this one go?
I think that the Lowe family they contributed to this festival by providing one of the prizes to the competition, which is a series of really pretty ribbons. Yes, of course you can go and buy the candies, which we also sell, but these ribbons, this is your chance of winning them. A ribbon that you may not otherwise be able to afford.
So I think to help us get situated, I'm going to get everyone to give us a little description of what we see of your character. This is the first shot of them on screen in this harvest festival. What are they doing in this festival? What is their vibe?
So New England in the fall, this time period, what you have to know is that this means apple cider donuts. That's what that means. And apple cider donuts are some of the most amazing things you've ever had in your entire life because they're like made fresh, probably, by one of the farmers. And so I imagine there's like a little stand of apple cider donuts and apple cider and maybe some pies or whatnot. And I think that I have, I work at the store to earn money to help support my grandmother because, my family doesn't have anything. And so one should be very frugal with money. That is a true statement. One should not waste money on wasteful things. But I do have friends, and there are these apple cider donuts. So, because I think we got paid recently, and I think I'm spending the money on like a big bag of apple cider donuts so I can give them to my friends. And I think that this is like, I'm supposed to take this money home. And I didn't spend all of it, but I did spend more than I maybe should have. But they're apple cider donuts, and I want to share them with my friends. And so I think George he doesn't have that sort of worker's body that one has when one works in a textile factory, but has a bit more of a lithe body that you get when you grow up with a bit more money. So it's a bit lanky, but is wearing sort of like regular working person's clothes because that's what you got. And it's sort of like a tight little curls. He's mixed black, and he's got his donuts, and he is like just whistling a tune, some kind of dreamy tune that he knows, and he's smiling, having given far too much money to the stand with like far too many donuts, but he's so excited to give them away. And as you see George, he's sort of like bouncing and whistling and almost runs into somebody because he's not really paying attention, trying to figure out where his friends are as he's sort of wandering through the crowd.
There definitely has to be a place where we regularly hang out, a place where the edge of town and like a field would meet. We've got a little clearing that we've kind of flattened just by stomping around on it and sitting around. And Isaac will be there with a hodgepodge of like old boiled rags that are slowly being sewn into I guess like a modern crop. It's a small t-shirt. It just kind of looks like a crop top for the sad pile of hay that has been strung together to make like, it's no more than like 2 feet tall. It is a scarecrow. If you put it on a big enough stick, it might scare away something. And it's currently wearing a dirty gray, brown, falling apart rag crop top. And Isaac is kind of sewing it with some needles in their mouth and the pincushion wrapped around their wrist. And he's trying his best to fix it without the thin fabric really tearing apart.
It's scared away a couple of small children so far.
Ida is strutting about just making sure that everyone sees that she is wearing her new favorite ribbon. A red ribbon in her glossy black hair. Her cheeks just rosy in now like a little bit of the cold. I feel like the person that George almost bumps into is Ida.
And I think it's actually like a shoulder check, but he didn't mean to. Like, and so just like, oh, Ida, I've got the donuts. Oh.
And then Ida will just start heading off in the direction of the field.
Okay. And then like George just like
going to
trails
follow?
along behind Ida. Yep. Yes. I got donuts. You said you liked them. Got
reach over and take a donut. Obsessed with these donuts, actually, but would never say it.
That ribbon looks really good. I think it was really big last year when I was at a really nice dance, and that was a very popular ribbon last year. It looks very good on you.
It is not the same ribbon that you saw. I think you saw wrong.
Oh. Okay.
Your stuff's outdated. And did I hear donuts? I would love a donut.
Oh, yes.
And where's
sitting on the ground?
Head of the bag.
Whoa.
What about Mariana? Is Mariana here?
So Mariana's having a bit of an issue because here's the thing. At first, she thought it was a great idea that she should persuade the other girls from Caldwell to come down with her because like it'd be great to, encourage the Caldwell girls to like see more of the world. Great idea. But then even before she hits the fall festival, even as she's walking down the hill, the problem with this immediately occurs to her because she is now stuck in a gaggle of like upper class, well-off girls who are dressed way too well for a fall festival where you're meant to eat donuts and carve pumpkins, giggling and already starting to bad mouth people that they can see in the distance. And she's like, oh my God, how am I going to get out of this bunch of girls to go see my friends? And George. So she's late because she is waiting for the moment. She goes around with them to like the different stalls for a bit, and like she buys a couple of like she also buys some donuts because she doesn't like know that George has bought the donuts, but she is a lady, so she buys 2 donuts. She's like 2 donuts between 4. That's fine. You can split them. And a few candies, and goes around with everyone as they like are like, "Oh, this is so fun. Oh, my shoes are getting muddy." Okay. And then eventually they get like sidetracked by something that like a performance that is happening, and she's like, "Oh, I'll be right back, ladies," and disappears and makes her way in the field fully at least 25 minutes after everyone else got there.
And you're out of breath now.
She is out of breath and her shoes are muddy, which is a problem. So she is going to stop and she's like, "Oh, my shoes wouldn't have been muddy, but I ran."
The minute she arrives, he stands up. We were waiting for you. We have donuts.
"Oh, I
Oh,
brought donuts,"
big
and she
bag.
unfolds like the wrapped donuts. "Oh, George, you have so
Oh.
many."
Thought we'd all need them.
uh-huh. Mm-hmm. We're good.
They're not as many as I used to have, but that's because
"Oh, George,
Mm-hmm.
can I borrow your kerchief? I'll have it cleaned."
of course. But he takes out this kerchief, and I think it's a nice linen kerchief that is like one of his old ones, and it's got the monogram on it. Then it sort of like doesn't really fit his current vibe, and he hands it over to you, just quite cheery.
Fine, fine. I will shoulder check you and say, no, take mine.
And the
Oh.
funny thing is, she will take Ida's because she gets one look at this kerchief and is like, "Oh my God, it's George's old one." And like from his old life, and does not want to like ruin that. So she will happily ruin Ida's and wipe the mud off like the top of her shoes and be like, "I swear I'll have it cleaned. I'll send it back to you, Ida."
Yes, of course.
He puts it back in and is like, "Oh," and he's not quite certain what just happened, but he thinks something happens, but he doesn't know what it is. And he just sort of like sits back next to Isaac, like kind of like shoulder to shoulder with his buddy.
Was your kerchief not good enough?
Oh my gosh, what are you sewing? Or were you sewing?
Oh, This is I based this off of Ida. I haven't put a face on the scarecrow yet, but it has scared away 2 children so far.
Isaac, that is not funny.
Mariana suppresses her laughter.
That looks nothing like me.
Okay, once I gotta fix the hair. It's hard with when it's straw. I was gonna dye the straw, but then it becomes like a whole thing. What do you think? Is that too much?
Have you heard the story of the faceless scarecrow?
No.
Right. So, apparently, 100 years ago, during the American Revolution, there was a soldier who disguised himself as a scarecrow. But then he died and he lost his face. And now they say he haunts Arlingham in the forest by the river with no face, looking to steal a face from anyone who is out by themselves at night.
That is awesome.
Right?
That's dreadful, George. That's a dreadful story, but she like loves it.
I mean,
And what do you think?
We should probably check it out.
That can't be true. That can't be true.
We'd have to sneak out at night, though.
I'm not going.
I'm available tonight.
Come on.
I'm not. Ida's a chicken. She's always afraid.
Ida, let's go.
No.
We can prove them wrong.
Looks over at Mariana like, I can't disappoint Mariana. Fine. I'm not scared anyways.
Sure.
Anyway, Isaac, shouldn't you be focusing on making things that are more fashionable?
Yeah, I mean, probably. I just don't really have the tools right now. Things have been a little tight at home. So I found these I didn't really find them. I borrowed them from our neighbor's cleaning line. But I mean, I don't think she needs them anymore. They're barely holding on. Like,
what do you need?
Just fabric.
Oh, why didn't you talk to me?
Oh, I'm not gonna ask you for anything. Ew. I don't need help.
I'm not helping you. I'm helping make the scarecrow look less bad.
Look less like you mean? Okay,
That's
okay, okay,
not
okay.
funny.
Okay, we can dress up the scarecrow. I can find some more hay. We can make it like taller. And do you think that would pass your inspection?
Probably. I can probably find something.
I think what we should do now is let's split up into like a few smaller scenes so we can see the individual dynamics while they're doing this. So I imagine they'll meet back at the Scarecrow.
Ida and Isaac, maybe? And then Mariana
Yeah,
and
I was gonna say
George?
let's start with Ida and Isaac, probably going back to the shop to try to find some fabric, right?
So we're walking back, and then I think like halfway there, Isaac, I'm tired. Carry me.
Okay, I can't. You're not like
Yes,
10
you
years old
can.
anymore. I can't
Yes,
carry
you
you.
can. You
Uh,
are strong.
My
Yes, you are.
ankle hurts. And like,
No,
gonna
it does
stop
not.
popping.
Carry
Okay, but you
me.
have to carry the scarecrow first, okay?
Ugh. Fine. Yeah, Ida will like take it in one hand and then like running hop onto Isaac's back. And then like hold the scarecrow like across in front of Isaac.
Okay, okay, I need to see. I need to see. Oh, blah. That smells worse than I remember. Okay,
Yeah,
just
because
don't
it smells
tell.
like you.
That's not true. I smell fine enough that I can still go to work. Nobody says anything. Tries to smell his armpits while walking. Then it's a slow. It's again when you're trying to carry somebody else, you kind of take like step, step, step. A lot of like ab clenching. And he's gonna manage. We can't do this anymore. You're not little. I think we're pretty much the same age.
We are the same age. I'm older though.
No. I'm older. Definitely older. You can ask
No?
mom. She knows my age. Yep.
This is fun. We should do this all the time.
Can I offer a resolve token for John to like he's coming from the shop to the festival to see them doing this?
Sure. Who would the token go to?
I think it's gonna go to Ida since it's her father.
Sure. Yeah, I'll
So
take it.
just to explain what is happening here, in Castles in the Air, every major character has a connection, or two when you grow up, who is somebody who is very influential to your character. They may love them, they may hate them, but they're very connected to them in some way. So each of us are playing a secondary character who is a connection. And the connection I am playing is John Lowe, who is Ida's dad, and thinks that she is amazing and gonna go on to better things, or at least that's what he normally thinks. But in this moment, he just like sees the both of them and just gives Ida, it's like a pleasant look, but it's a look of like, this is very uncharacteristic.
Ida is immediately embarrassed and like lets go of Isaac. Let me down, let me down.
I'm gonna fall right back. My center of gravity was not ready for that. Whoa, okay. Hits the
Young
ground.
Isaac.
Oh,
He reinforces the fact that Ida is the older one.
Yeah. And Isaac is his nephew because we're cousins. Okay.
I feel like it's the relationship doesn't feel very relationshipy. Like it's not. I don't get uncle vibes from
John.
Uncle
I think
Lowe.
the actual relation's probably on Ida's mother's side, so this is like a little bit more removed.
Yeah. Press off, stand up as quick as possible. Hi, sir. And then looks back. Ida, do you need help up?
I'm fine, thank you.
Yeah, no, of course. I'm always looking out for you. I'm just trying not to catch the ire of John.
Were you headed to the shop, Ida?
Yes. I forgot a ribbon.
All right. Well, and he stands there and he like doesn't want to say really anything more with like Isaac just standing there next to Ida. So there's like an awkward pause. And then he's like, Well, don't miss too much of the festival, especially not when they give the first prize for the pumpkin carving contest.
Yes, I wouldn't miss it for the world, duh.
And then he nods and continues towards the festival.
Oh my God. Your duh hates me. Did you see the way he glared? I didn't do anything wrong.
He doesn't hate you. He's
Hates
just
me. I
he
could
doesn't
feel
hate you.
the sun was burning into my soul, and he said, "Do better," and I don't want to.
You're so dramatic. And we'll start walking into the store.
Me, dramatic, and he'll stomp his way behind you.
Let's cross over
Let's see.
to George and Mariana. What are they up to?
Such a good question. I think I can imagine that they're probably staying in that space at the moment where they're sort of like the hangout, probably by a nice tree, sort of like by that field. And I imagine he has encouraged her not to get up, just like to kind of hang out. The two of them, like we don't need to go and do things, right? Like we could just hang out here. And like kind of like a nice, I imagine he's got like a little straw of hay, right, in his mouth. He's sort of leaning back, and it's sort of like a little brisk, but not too cold yet. So, how's school?
She'll flick the hay, and so it like kind of like shakes in his mouth and says, "Ah, you've got those country boy habits. School is fine. I I don't pay too much attention. Doesn't matter anyway. It's not like anything we learn there is going to be important. Although Miss Washington's a bit,
She's great, don't you think? I mean,
well, she has a lot of
she's been,
ideas,
yeah,
which is
she's been
good.
to Canada, to a
Okay.
whole other country.
A lot of people have been to Canada, George.
Yeah, but
She wants us to all, you know, take on all her ideas, and it's just I have my own ideas.
like, like what?
Mm, well, for one thing, I mean, politics is all very well, but it requires such a lot of reading. I'm more of a doing type.
Me too. Have your parents said anything about me recently?
Um, I think she gives him kind of like a, oh, my sweet George look. And she says, oh, my parents, all they ever write to me about is business and family, and I don't read half of what they write anyway. Oh, but I did bring you something. And then
Yeah?
I think she pulls out a little book of poems.
Oh,
And she says, oh, a bookseller came to the college, and we were all meant to buy a book that interests us. So I bought a book that interests me because I thought that you might like it.
oh, thanks. It takes it. Oh, that's amazing. Looks through Wordsworth. Huh. I have something for you. You can't tell anyone though, if you don't mind. I might get in trouble.
Oh, I'm terribly good at keeping secrets, you know me.
And he pulls out some paper that has clearly been ripped out of perhaps a book. And he hands it to you. There's like 3 sheets. And on one side are ledgers for a business, like if you were going to be taking stock and, things like that. But on the other side, he's drawn, there's these sketches of like of a hot air balloon and the sky. And it's sort of like, and there's like a sketch that sort of looks like you. He's not good enough yet of a drawer, but there's one that sort of looks like you, and there's one of this or these 3, one of this like hot air balloon, one that sort of looks like you, and one of a bench that they used to sit at when they were younger back in Boston. And this is clearly from Lowe's General. This is the ledger from Lowe's General Store that he needed paper to draw on, and so he ripped out some paper. And 2 of the pages don't have anything on it. One of them has some sort of business stuff, I guess.
I would love to offer a monologue token specifically to Mariana. Like
Mm.
seeing all of this,
Mm.
like
Do you have a question in mind, or
This,
just her thoughts in this
yeah,
moment?
yeah, this gift that seems to carry so much of George's feelings, and also so much of that feelings is tied up in nostalgia for this past. How
Yeah.
how how does Mariana feel about it? How do you feel about this gift, and like how to even handle George's emotions?
Outwardly, she doesn't give much away. I think she actually goes through them in that order. So the first one is the balloon, the second one is her, and the third one is the bench. So she sees the balloon and she's like, oh, it's your balloon again. Because it's like not the first time she's heard about the balloon.
He draws them
Uh,
all the time. Like he's
yeah.
always drawing these little hot air balloons.
And then she sees the second
Yeah.
one and the third one. They're more unusual. They're not subject matter that she's seen him like really draw before. Just smiling like you would if you looked at a nice picture. But inside her head, she's thinking, how did he come to draw me? I don't remember him drawing while I was sitting. I suppose he remembers my face better than I would expect. It's not a bad likeness. I mean, his drawings could use some refinement. Well, that's the fault of him having to give them up before he'd had the proper time to be tutored on them. But it's not a bad likeness, and it does look like me. And this does look like the bench, not just any bench. I can tell which bench this is. I could recognize this bench from a mile away, or I suppose I could recognize this bench sketched out in black and white on this very bit of paper. Poor George. It isn't fair what happens to good people. People grow up with certain expectations of what their life will be like and who they will be, and it is cruel of the world to dash them without notice like that. To lose one's parents in the thick of it. But surely it is just a temporary state for him. I can't imagine someone like George being stuck in this small town. I'm sure that he's going to find the way forward and back to Boston, and we'll be in the same circles again. And I wonder if things will return to how they were in that department or not. And then she like gives George, like she looks up from the paper, which is where she's sort of gotten lost in this thought for a minute, and she gives George a very appraising look just to check that he's still every inch the gentleman that he was in Boston, and that when he returns to Boston, he will still know how to be every inch the gentleman. And she snatches
And he's got the hay behind his ear.
Yeah, well, she snatches
Yeah.
the hay out from behind his ear and is like, don't pretend to be such a country boy. These are lovely. These are very lovely.
Well, I feel like if I don't pretend to be a country boy a bit, some of the boys get rough. They can bully a little bit. I mean, Isaac looks out for me, but I don't always fit in, if you know.
Oh, do what you need to do, George. But don't forget, all right? Don't forget how to be a gentleman.
Of course. And he bows.
And she'll like give him like a little curtsy with like an element of cheekiness to it for sure. I feel good with that for the scene if you're happy with that.
Yeah.
That might actually be a good place for us to end our first novel chapter and move on to our bosom enemy phase. So, in this phase, we are going to be considering how our characters fared when faced with their bosom enemy. And if we feel like they haven't had a chance to explore it yet, then you can set a scene or a vignette that gives you the opportunity to explore a little bit further. So in terms of assessing how you did when you're faced with your bosom enemy, you can either tick positive or negative or both. So by way of explanation, say your bosom enemy was that you were angry. If you got into a yelling match with someone, that might be negative. If you got into a yelling match but then apologize afterwards, that could be negative and positive. If you managed to calm yourself down before you got too angry, that could be positive. Or if you channeled your anger into, standing up for someone who needed it, that could also be positive. So that just gives you some idea about like how you might approach assessing your characters in this phase. But if you feel like you didn't really get to like dig into the meat of your character's bosom enemy, you can set a scene or a vignette around it as well. So have a think, and when you kind of know where you land on that, let us
Do
know.
you think you did yours?
So I do think for Mariana, I do think she did contend with her impulsiveness, like multiple times. For one thing, she like just ghosted her friends, and they still don't know where she went. She just appeared back when they were walking back up and was like, "Hello." And secondly, I think in her relationship with George, she just says what she thinks. Like she's not guarded. She's not worried about being seen as improper. She's not worried about what Isaac and Ida think about the situation. She just fully just like lets her impulses guide her in that relationship too. I'm actually going to tick positive and negative for that. And the reason is that like I think her impulsiveness like can help her to draw people like to like draw people closer to her and like encourage them, but I also think it can cause her to lead them down past a way of thinking that she's not able to follow up on. So I'm going to go with positive and negative for that. I think I'll use like George and that imagined moment with Ida as my example there to put in the middle.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think for Ida, definitely Ida's bosom enemy is jealousy, I guess. And definitely reacted in a negative way to the bosom enemy, like very much was being antagonistic. I mean, pretty much towards everyone, but that's not the bosom enemy. It's jealousy specifically that is the bosom enemy. And I think was especially pointed in the antagonism towards George. So I'm gonna say negative.
For George, he's definitely been imagining kind of like being in a sort of a bit of a fantasy world and sort of enthusiastic. I feel like there are going to be negative consequences for quite a few of those things that haven't happened just yet, but I can imagine a couple spaces where his imagination caused trouble. There is a missing page out of the store ledger that I'm sure is not going to go well. And also a little bit less money for food, etc. Also for the coming week as well.
I'm so stressed for you and your grandma.
Yeah.
You know,
like
Isaac ate all the donuts. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like my
what's that?
grandma's like 90. You know what I mean? Like I feel like
Yeah.
she might even be his great grandma, but like she's like super old. And I think that it's one of those things where I don't think he realizes that it's going to have any kind of negative consequence at all because he kind of walks through life that way. And then like I imagine like after their like night in like on the river and it's so great, everything is wonderful and fine. When he gets home, I imagine he sort of sneaks in to see his grandmother and um, there's no food. There's no like food left over. And he goes to the pantry and there's nothing there. There's just like maybe like a loaf of bread, but there are no eggs, none of those things that he forgot to get them. Also, he didn't have enough money to get all of them, but he just forgot because he was having a lovely time with his friends and she's sleeping. And I think he looks at the cupboard and he realizes there's just actually really nothing there for breakfast. And he just sort of sits there, probably like the kitchen table, thinking about, and he just puts like the last donut that he has that he was going to eat, and he just puts it on the table for his grandmother for when she wakes up.
Oh, I love that. So that definitely feels like it's going to be a negative, doesn't it?
Negative. Yeah, that's a negative for me. Yeah.
Gosh.
So on the stubborn side of things, with Isaac, the first kind of stubborn moment was definitely the friction with like him and Ida, where she just wanted the piggyback ride. And I feel like that kind of harkened back to a repeated childhood dynamic between the two of them. Like you would demand and I would have to give in. Doesn't love it, but doesn't feel like he can't object, but he tries so hard. He tries so hard to put his foot down because he's trying to be stubborn. But everybody can walk all over him, the moment with Ida's dad. Even though all he was doing was just like standing still and trying to not be noticed. I don't know. Does that count?
I feel like, well, I think there's two ways you could like approach this, I suppose. One way is to say, I feel like in terms of Isaac's stubbornness, we probably haven't seen like enough of it yet. I definitely think we could use a vignette or a scene where we explore it a little bit more. But it does make me wonder, like, do you still feel like stubbornness is the thing at Isaac's core? Or is his problem that
No.
like he just can't be loud enough, like he can't stand up for himself? Is it maybe the opposite problem?
Yeah.
The lack of stubbornness, perhaps. But
And
he
Yeah,
wants
the
to be
thing
stubborn,
about
right?
your
word?
bosom enemy is that you're allowed to change it at any time. So if you suddenly realize, oh, wait, my character is struggling with something very different, you can change it.
What is the word? Like passive?
People pleasing
Yes.
is one from the game.
People pleasing. Internally,
Yeah.
he's not willing to admit
Yeah.
that that's what he does.
Yeah.
But it's very much like that
Yeah, yeah.
survival aspect of people
Yeah,
pleasing.
exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that's what it feels like. Yeah.
Like that's why he's such a scamp, is because he has to. It's a front. It's absolutely a front.
Yeah.
But then like, so would this be categorized as like they're all negative? What would ever be a positive people pleasing situation?
Sometimes
When it does
backing
something good
down
for people.
would be the right thing to do in the situation. So, and
Okay.
yeah, like I guess it might not be not like a pleasant thing to do in a situation. Like for example, what Isaac did with John, right? Like he could have, stood up for himself more, but backing down is making his life easier, and it means that like John, doesn't think any less of him as a result of the situation anymore than he
Yeah.
already would have, right?
It meant that, yeah, he didn't draw attention from John to him, which means that we were able to get the fabric.
That's true.
You know what?
To
Phrase
Isaac.
like that as well. I do like
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
And then later on, like the positive interaction with it could be like overcoming that in a different situation as well.
Yeah.
So like the interpretation,
Yeah.
we can really play with it.
All right, so we are going to move on to epistolary. So epistolary is a phase for writing. In good society, this phase is just about writing letters. But as we are children, in Castles in the Air, we have many more options of things we could write. You can write a letter. You could write a journal entry. You could write a school report if you're at school, which I think might just be Mariana. You could write a pretend newspaper article or write about an invented story or game. Or you can also write a letter from your connection if you want to as well. So we're each going to have 2 turns.
Can I give you a resolve token?
What are you thinking?
Well, I would like to send a letter from Tom, her cousin, that's going to inherit all the textile business, who, by the way, was at the fall festival. You were supposed to be there, but did not notice you, and so asked around a little bit and maybe found out who you're hanging out with. I'm thinking that I would give you a resolve token for that
I
one.
will take that resolve token. Yes, I will.
So I feel like you're going to get a letter from your older cousin who knows better than anyone else, actually. And someone has to reel you in. Dearest Mariana, this is your favorite cousin Tom, writing you with a small concern. As you well know, our reputation as Beckers is very important. Reputations mean everything. With a good reputation, you can have a good business. With a good business, you can have a continued good life, going to all of the best balls, being seen with the best people. But you cannot be seen with the best people if you are seen with not the best people. Your father stopped your engagement to that George Addicts for a reason. I happened to see you, or heard tell that you are associating with him and some ruffian who works at my mill. well, not my mill yet, but will be my mill when I inherit, you should not be hanging out with the help. I don't want to bring this up to your father. I'm sure he'll be quite displeased. So, I will expect you to be more present in the social life and the social circles that you should be associated with. Your older cousin, always looking out for your best interests and your reputation, Tom.
Oh my God. Mariana's just like, not your mill yet, Tom.
That's my first letter.
That
Just a
was
threat,
so
smile threat.
good.
I think Isaac will come up with a game to play. And it's called Blindfold Find. And with this newly acquired ribbon, somebody gets blindfolded, and the person with the blindfold has to run around and try to catch you. Once you are caught, they can't take the blindfold off. They have to guess who you are, by touching your face. And that will be like, if they can guess right, then you win. So there's a lot of proximity involved. And would Mariana attend this silly game of touching each other's faces?
Oh, she'd play for sure if she can get out. Her problem now is she's being more vigilant about the sneaking. So I think she still sneaks out, but she's usually not there for as long as she used to be.
Okay, this is a game that we probably played many a time. Like I palm Ida's face and I'm like, ugh, it's my cousin. It just goes a little bit slower between George and Mariana versus like Isaac and Ida are just like, come on, why aren't you moving? Like we're right over here. And that's my game, Blindfold Find.
Mariana's going to write a letter to Ida. I think there is a religious holiday coming up. It's like a public holiday, essentially. The letter is, Ida, we have 2 days off for insert a religious holiday here. And several of the girls and I, including Lily and Anna, are going to go to Boston. We're going to hire a carriage to take us to the train, and then we're going to catch the train to Boston, and we are going to go and visit a few of the places that I know there that we will like. And I wanted to invite you to go with us. Can you get the day off the shop and money for the train? And don't worry about the rest.
Amazing.
For the record, Tom is not married. Just going to put that out there. Tom is single. Who's going to inherit everything.
I forgot that Ida's castle is marry a rich man and become a stunning socialite in Boston. Okay, well, Ida's definitely is going to reply in the positive and will say, dearest Mariana, thank you so much for inviting me to this outing. I'm sure that all of us are going to have so much fun together in Boston. My father is very accommodating and has graciously allowed me to come along. In fact, he sends his regards. I will be wearing these various things of these various colors, and if you wanted to coordinate, yeah, I think that's what it will be. And then I also know what my next thing is going to be. It's going to be a journal entry, but
do it. I'm excited.
Did you want this outing to actually happen in like a scene?
So if you are planning on putting about it in your journal, I think that is an excellent idea.
I'm going to do that. The date on the journal entry is obviously after the religious holiday. And it is just the paper is tear stained. Dear journal, what a horrid day. I was so excited about going, and I had my best ribbons, and my hair was perfectly curled, but these girls they're horrid. They're horrible. They're horrendous. How can girls that look so pretty be so mean? Throughout this whole trip, all they did was make fun of me. And I know they were, even though they smiled and laughed and were polite. But I know that they were turning their nose to me because I was some country girl and they were too good for me. And I could not afford anything that they wanted to try. And I did not realize that I was poor. But I will not stay poor. Just they wait. I am going to marry the richest man that they know, and then I will turn my nose at them. See how Lily likes that.
Amazing.
Lily's the worst.
Lily is the worst.
Ugh, Lily, come on.
I have a letter that I'd like to write. George writes a letter. Dear Mom and Dad, I hope you're doing well when you get this letter. I know you're probably on an island just waiting for a ship to come by, and you'll be back anytime. And then you'll fix all of these. Anyway, Ida and I are best friends. We get along very well. I think she thinks I'm smart, and that's wonderful. She's the girl in the shop that I work at, and I'm doing very well. I'm going to get a promotion any day now. Her father thinks I'm very good worker, and I'm doing really well. And Mariana, we're still engaged. Everything's fine there. At any time when we both get older, it's going to be great. We're going to get married, and she's in town with me, and I see her all the time. And I haven't been invited yet to any teas at the college, but anytime I will, it'll be great. I should tell you about Isaac. Isaac is he's like an older brother. He's always looking out for me, and if somebody tries to push me around, he won't let them. Not that anybody would try to push me around. That doesn't happen because I'm very well liked in town. All of my peers like me, and I'm still studying. I'm basically still going to school. And I'm like you said I should go to university, and I will. You have to graduate from high school first, and I'm on my way to graduate from high school. Nana's health is good. It's very good. She's doing very well, and I am doing very well. And I just would like you to come back home anytime soon. That would be great, and then we could go back to the way things were. I'll just send this letter, and I'll be waiting for a reply. Your son, always, George. And he puts the letter in a hole in the tree by our meeting space because it's a magic mailbox that'll get to his parents somehow.
These are emotionally devastating. Dang, y'all.
Everything's fine.
Oh, sure.
I think Mariana's going to write a letter to George. Normally they see each other often enough that she doesn't need to bother with letters, but this one feels important. Dear George, it does feel so funny to write you since I see you all the time, but I did want to ask you something. Ida came with us the other day to Boston, and well, I think I thought that it went quite well. She saw sights she'd never seen before, and I took her around to many places that I used to love when I lived there, and of course I will live there again. And yet something seemed to be troubling her, and I couldn't quite tell what it was. And then when we had departed and gone back to college, Lily said to me, very strange sort of friends you were making in Arlingham. And there was something about that comment, you see, that put upon me the feeling that I might have been able to work out what it was that was getting at Ida. Because, well, the girls were ribbing her as we do. We always make fun of each other. But it occurs to me when I think about it that maybe they'd meant it a little bit more than they generally do. They're my friends and I like them, Lily and Anne, that is, but they can cause me problems in times like this. So I thought maybe you could talk to her and let her know that, she's the sort of person that would do well in Boston and that she needn't worry about what other people thought of her, because if I told her that, she would think that I'm just trying to pity her, and I wouldn't want her to think that. And she would know that you know anyway because you grew up there. And also, 3 years from now, when I shall be returning to Boston, and I shall be surrounded by all those girls and gentlemen who like those kind of girls, and I don't know, suddenly I felt very lonely, which is strange because they're my friends. Lily and Anne, they really are my friends. Anyway, I'd written you this letter, and I suppose it ought to come to an end now, though there are many more things that I could write about to tell you. But hopefully we will see each other soon when this whole evening study idea is over. I don't want to hear people reading the newspaper out loud. I couldn't stand it for another half an hour. Yours, Mariana.
Wanders around the shop with the letter, just all excited. And some stock doesn't get
Devastating in a different way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, we have some more options, which I really, really enjoy for the letter writing. And like one of them is a letter to the newspaper. And I kind of like went through a couple of letter ideas in my head, like what would be a great article to write? And then I'm like, honestly, I don't know how much Isaac can even write, but Thelma Washington, our wonderful suffragette and college professor, teacher, I'm not really sure what the title is, with protests and, just ways to try to amplify the messaging. I think that it would be really cool if there was an advert out in the local paper for a like volunteers are necessary to help craft signs to amplify their voices. If it's not required to be able to write. All you need to do is be able to hold a paintbrush. It's like whether you're a seasoned artist or simply eager to lend a hand, your contribution is invaluable to our cause. All are welcome to participate. Maybe some simple refreshments of like tea and something small and simple. And then the date is posted very clearly, and there are no limitations. Everybody welcome.
Where is it? This is why I'm intrigued.
College.
It's at the college.
Yeah,
My.
Caldwell.
Oh,
That's great. There's going to be complaints from parents. I can't wait.
For sure. For sure.
That is our epistolary. I enjoyed that very much. So ordinarily, in the first child cycle of play, we would be going through more novel chapters, more bosom enemy phases, more epistolary phases, where we'll be fleshing out our characters and exploring them further. But since in this game, we wanted to give you a bit of a taste of everything, we are going to be going forward to the passage of time. But before we do that, I just want to get us to add a couple of little things to help us finish off childhood. So the first one of them is that the next novel chapter we would be doing is the guidance chapter, which is all about our connections, giving advice, good or bad, to the character that they are connected to. So I would like everyone to think of one piece of advice the connection that they're playing would give to the major character.
Oh, pick me.
Yes, go.
So Thelma, our wonderful Thelma Washington, the instructor of the Caldwell College. So like, George, you need to write down exactly what it is that you believe in, and you need to create a plan, because nothing is impossible. You can accomplish all of your dreams. You have the ambition, you have the power, and you have the support. And I think like she's really, really gonna like nail home the idea that like your idealism is good because that's part of what she has to tell herself in order to keep continuing
Yeah.
the hard heckin' stuff that she has to deal with. But like, it's really, really, really reinforcing that you can keep your head in the clouds and it'll all work out fine.
Write out all my dreams. I'm gonna sketch them. Oh,
Sketch them.
I feel like John's advice to Ida, we all know you're going to be something in Boston one day, but you've got to think carefully about how you get there. Look around in this town of Arlingham. Now, who's the most important people in Arlingham? We are, because we have the best store and everybody knows that. Except the mayor, but the mayor aside. And, when you think about who in Arlingham has like sophistication and style and like, then of course you think of us. But that's because we're in Arlingham. We're in such a small town, right? But you being part of our family or like buying from our store, it gives you a touch of that sophistication. It gives you that sense of that. It's like being a tiny way, getting Boston in a tiny way. And so when you go to Boston, it's a different scale. The best corner store in Boston, well, it isn't a corner store. It's a whole establishment. It could be a dressmaking salon with 300 people working there. And so what I'm saying is that you need to be associated with the best people. You need to work your way into the best circles, because just by being with them, shopping from the store of the life that they lead, that's how everyone is going to see who you are and how you're going to find your way to shine, because I know you're going to shine there, darling.
I will not disappoint you, Da. Minnie.
So can you remind us who Minnie is? Because we haven't seen her on screen yet.
Oh, yeah. Minnie
Thanks.
is Isaac's aunt, right? Who works at the textile mill. Is sort of a no-nonsense hard worker, and her hands are dyed from her work and will never wash out. But she's proud of it. She's not ashamed of working with her hands. Minnie's advice, or Minnie's conversation with Isaac, I think Minnie might have come across Isaac's stash. And Minnie had a very stern talking to with Isaac. And so the conversation that she has with Isaac is that we do not take things that are not ours. We may be poor, but we have our pride, Isaac. We do not take handouts and we do not steal.
Handouts? It was a gift. A friend. It's not a handout. It's a future investment.
We Browns, we have always been poor, but one thing that we never lacked was our backbone. And Isaac, I need you to remember that.
Yeah, totally. Got it.
And we'll like ruffle your hair.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, man. Okay, I am dreading to hear what advice Tom is going to give Mariana. I know
I don't know why you would dread this.
Dreading it.
I don't know why you would dread. Mariam, as your older cousin and in many ways the man of the house, or at least of Arlingham, the only one here, I need to let you know that some things are a bit unseemly. You have always been somewhat impulsive, and deciding to go and get educated in the first place is a bit of indulgence of both your mother and your father on you, and really, what you need to do is get married. You have some scandal. Everyone's talking about that broken engagement to that pauper. I think the only way for you to curb your far too youthful enthusiasm. At the age of 21, I have seen much. I have a lot of experience. And I think that you might do well to get engaged to Frederick Collins. He's a school chum of mine. We went to Harvard together, and he is of a good pedigree. Someone who might help keep you less impulsive, might help you calm down, so that you can retire into being a whatever it is you'll do, I suppose, once you're married. But I would say that you might want to consider Frederick. It is he's doing me a favor by considering you. So please don't disappoint me.
I'm crying.
Yep.
Wow.
Well, that happened.
God damn it, Frederick.
Yeah. Just yeah.
Okay, so the last thing I'm going to ask before we start our passage of time as children is that as our characters begin to realize that they are starting to grow up and the world is starting to tell them to do things, what is one thing that they still do to celebrate the freedom? They might not even, like, I assume not consciously, but one thing that they still do to enjoy the freedom that they have of youth right now.
George puts on a play. Yeah,
What?
at the bonfire. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And it's going to be like one of those ones because if we're the 1870s, it's some kind of quasi Greek thing where like there's like we're going to have to get and I'm going to get fabric. Don't worry about how I got it. And so we can get togas. You can make them. Isaac can make them,
Ooh.
and we'll do like a like with candles and a bonfire, and we'll do like a recitation of like Shakespeare, like maybe Julius Caesar or something. George would work with Isaac to memorize like a monologue, like a soliloquy, so that Isaac could come out like and do a soliloquy.
I am so in love with this. I think that this is a like an idea that definitely goes overboard from what starts as like a simple play with just a couple of our friends and family to watch, ends up becoming like a fully casted, mostly fitted, some live music, you know, like there's Timothy down the street who can play the flute. It takes us months to practice, and like it's something we're doing entirely on our own time, which just makes it all the better.
I think it's really hard for Mariana to get away at this time, so she has like the smallest role in the whole of, but she's still in it.
I love it.
I think like most of the months it's actually just arguing between Ida and George.
Yes.
And I feel like in an act of a kid pretending to be an adult, I suppose, like when they finish the play and like they have like their celebratory evening, afterwards Mariana has managed to like smuggle some like proper adult wine, and it's like the first time that she's had like alcohol that is intended for adults as opposed to like, you know,
watered down.
Yeah, watered down. That she makes a big thing of them all having some wine that she only has one glass, so they have to take turns.
Yes. Absolutely. Do like little individual cheers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was actually an amazing walk through what would have happened if we had our two more novel chapters. We found our advice and our guidance, and then our like final novel chapter of childhood. So that sets us up well to move into our passage of time. Since I'm going to be cutting this like into two, I think I'm just going to get y'all to say like who you are and where we can find you. So let's go in opposite order of introducing our characters. Agatha, where can folks find you on the interwebs?
Oh, okay. You can find me at Mighty Shrimp with 2 Y's, Mighty with 2 Y's, Mighty Shrimp on X, Twitter. And on itch.io, you can find the one thing that I wrote, which is also for Good Society.
And it's very good.
An expansion. It's called Deadly Society, where you can play out and then there were none kind of a story where you play out the story until everyone is dead, using the same Good Society system. What a great system. And you can also find me on Blue Sky at Mighty Shrimp with only 1 Y.
Subtle difference, but important.
Terrible branding, but I refuse to change it.
And B.
Yes, hello, hello. I have been your non-binary busy bee. You can find me on all social media platforms as bzelda_. Yeah, if the platform exists, I'm probably there. Do I use it? Maybe not, but I am podcaster, streamer, writer, sensitivity consultant. I like to wear a lot of hats, and I like to be in a lot of drama.
And Tripper.
I'm Trooper SJP, and I really feel like there's going to be a lot of drama. I just want you to know, I just feel impending drama. I cannot wait for the next moment because I'm worried, actually. It's fine. It's fine. I'm worried in a good way, in a very good way. Oh, this has been lovely. You can find me at Trooper SJP on Twitch. I'm a streamer. I do a lot of stuff. I stream, I produce, I do sensitivity consulting, I write, I do all of the stuff. I play the banjo and sing. But you can find me at Academic Foxhole on Twitter, X, whatever, Twitter. And if not Academic Foxhole, you can find me at Trooper SJP in all of the places. And I adore Good Society, and I actually brag about Good Society just to make some people embarrassed right now all the time in many places. And I really need to emphasize that this is, in my opinion, one of the best written rule sets for a narrativist rules light game. It is so well connected. All the pieces work so well. It is so well designed. It is an impressive and virtuosic game. And I just need you to know that it is amazing.
My Australian personality cannot take this. I may just
love it.
expire. Thank you for that. Yeah, so that is going to bring us to an end of part 1. But fear not, we'll find out what happens to all these kids in part 2. So we'll see you then. Bye.